Welcome back. It's good to have you in Hour 3. NFL Draft is the third week of April, and it's the next big sporting event we have in America. I guess the NFL did get a little bit of a break. Free agency and the draft, they're going to own our sports opinion calendar for at least the next month to 5 weeks. Joel Klatt, lead college football analyst for us. Check out his 2020 draft top 50 players list on at NFL on Fox and foxsports.com. It's got 7 LSU guys, 6 offensive tackles. Let me start with this, Klatster. Justin Herbert, you have him as the 4th best quarterback behind Burrow, I get, Tua, I get, Jordan Love. Why number 4? What do you see on tape that worries you?
Yeah, good question. And by the way, great to talk with you.
Great to talk with you.
Okay, so let's start with Herbert. So Herbert is an insanely talented, he's a blunt instrument, if you will. He's got a very strong arm. There's no doubt about it. But there are things when you watch his film, and whether it was during the year when I was breaking down his film in preparation for his game against USC, in which he played very well in the final 3 quarters, or now when I go back and watch his film, there are some real red flags to his game. Colin, you can see the talent. He's clearly a big, strong, he's a bright guy. He's a great team player. He's a good quality leader. But when you look at his ability to manipulate his own offense and use his offense to surgically attack the defense in the places where they're weak, he falls short of some of the other guys. And the Jordan Love, Love, if you will, above Herbert is just because I think Love has a higher ceiling. I see him with a very similar style of arm talent as Herbert, and yet a much higher ceiling because he makes more NFL style of throws into NFL style of windows in terms of where he's going with the ball and where the structure of the defense tells him to go with the ball. Quick example here. Justin Herbert, his first instincts a lot of the time is to flinch in the pocket, and his eyes go down to the rush. That's an alarming trait to see, especially when you see a very experienced player in college football that's taken a lot of snaps, and he's still making those what I would call immature mistakes from the quarterback position. So this is a guy that is not very surgical with his game. He's more of a blunt instrument. If you want to succeed in the NFL, I think that you need to become a surgical passer from the quarterback position, whether that's out of the pocket or inside the pocket. That's what wins in the playoffs, and that's why I've got Herbert below those other guys. Now,
I think Tua is going to be a legend, or you're going to be looking for a new GM if you draft him. I think I think his ceiling's really high. I love so much about him, but the injury stuff. If you are a GM like a Miami, do you take him?
Well, I don't think he's getting past that spot, and I think that Detroit probably is starting to, in particular with some of these videos, I'm sure you've seen the video on social media of him working out, and Tua we're talking about. He looks great. I mean, he really does, and I'm so happy for him that he seems to be as healthy as he is in some of those videos and moving so well, like we expect and want him to move in this time period, in particular after that horrific injury to his hip. Now, you bring up a couple of questions. One is his injury status. And we're not just talking about his hip. I'll get into that in just a second. We're also talking about his value and what's happening at the top of the draft. If I'm looking at the top of the draft, Colin, I got to tell you that the most advantageous spot right now seems to be Detroit at 3 because they have a quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and the guy that they covet is Jeff Okudah, the corner from Ohio State, who they could probably get in the 5th or 6th spot, and that's the spot in which you see those teams that desperately need the quarterback are sitting.
Yeah.
So if you're the Chargers and you really want Tua, guess what you've got to do? You've got to go up ahead of Miami. If you're Miami and you really love Tua, guess what you've got to do? Box out the Chargers from going up and getting him, and the spot becomes 3 with that Detroit pick. I think Detroit could move down to one of those spots, still get Okudah, who I think is the best corner in the draft, shore up some of that defensive edge that they need to under Matt Patricia. And to me, that's the best, most advantageous spot, at least early in the draft, is that Detroit pick. Now to the injury part that you asked about, that kind of dual-part question. Here's the concerning part for me about Tua. It's not necessarily just his hip, although, yes, that's concerning. It's the fact that, Colin, he's never played a full season healthy, even in college football. He's had the ankle injuries, and all these injuries, to me, have a very similar pattern, and that is the pattern that Tua believes he is more elusive than he actually is. Now, is he very good on his feet? Yes. Is he as elusive as Russell Wilson? Not even close, which is why he gets caught, tackled from behind, and gets some of those high ankle sprains and then ultimately that horrific hip fracture that he suffered. They're all very similar in their nature, and they all have a common thread of him being a little less athletic than he thinks he is, which is a problem. And that would persist in the NFL in my mind. So while I think he is a great player, I've got him 5 on my big board, I think he could be Drew Brees. I think he needs to be more Drew Brees than Russell Wilson because he's not as athletic as he thinks he is. And when he's running around, that's what leads to some of those injuries, which have led to him not finishing a season in college football.
You know, it's interesting. So there's 7 LSU guys in your top 50. A lot of offensive tackles. It's a good year for tackles, bad year for center, good year for corners, wide receivers. A lot of SEC guys in your top 50. Let's see here. Yeah, boy, I see a lot of SEC. You kind of, you are tough on the SEC, Klatt. I see a lot of SEC guys here. What's up with that?
I'm going to push back and just say I don't believe I'm tough, in particular on the top end of the SEC. I like to call it how it is. The top of the SEC is the class in college football. I think Ohio State had a great year. I think Clemson had a great year outside of that conference. And other than that, there really wasn't anybody else on that tier of Alabama and LSU. My argument during the fall has always been, and I think that you would back me up on this if we weren't being sarcastic or tongue-in-cheek, my argument has always been that the middle and bottom of that conference shouldn't get a pass for how bad they are just because they can ride on the coattails of great programs at the top, namely the top 3 if you include Georgia in there, and even if you wanted to throw Florida and maybe Auburn in there as well. It's a terrific conference at the top. The middle and the bottom of the conference is not as strong as everybody makes it out to be. And those are the fan bases that generally like to scream and shout about SEC and get the chance going. But it's a phenomenal conference. It's proven out in the draft. I see it when I evaluate. That's why I've got all those guys in my top 50.
Yeah, look at all these offensive linemen. Good Lord. What is it about Iowa? How the hell's Iowa? Iowa wins 7 games a year, and they've always got 4 guys in the top 50. They have your favorite offensive tackle, one of the best pass rushers. Just a couple years ago, they had 2 of the top tight ends. I don't know what it is. Part of me loves Iowa, and part of me wants to punch him in the forehead for scheduling Citadel 6 times a year. Why do they put so many guys in the NFL?
I didn't understand that they scheduled the Citadel.
Oh, they've always got a cream puff, ridiculous out-of-conference schedule. They play directional schools.
I disagree. They always play Iowa State with Matt Campbell.
No, they're good for an hour. Great.
Tough game. They play 9 conference games, so that's 10 Power 5 games. And normally they'll play like in northern Iowa, if you will. Anyway,
northern Iowa.
Listen, you want to punch Iowa in the face sometimes. Let me just tell you for a fact, Zach Johnson from PGA Tour can back me up on this. They want to punch you in the face.
Hey, I'll go there anytime, line up, and punch all of them right in the forehead. I mean it. I am tired of Iowa, but they do produce really good football players. A lot of them.
Unbelievable.
They really do.
You are unbelievable. I'm here to defend Iowa. I had them in the bowl game. I tell you what, that's a good program.
Oh, no.
That is a very good program.
Well coached.
USC, not that USC is all that strong right now.
Yeah, I just looked at their schedule for next year. They open up with Jiffy Lube, Panera Breads right after that. You're right. Okay, let's move on. When you look at this draft...
Okay, hey, now do your beloved SEC in November. Go ahead. Look at the Citadel in there. Look at Charlotte in there. Go ahead, Colin. Listen, if you're going to call a spade, then call it a spade across the board.
Here's all I know. Every year in the draft, the top 50 players, half are from 4 teams in one conference.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And then if you throw Ohio State in there and Clemson in there, that basically covers it. Then you sprinkle in Iowa and you sprinkle in, places like Penn State and places like that, and then you basically got it.
Yeah, let me one thing here. You're a former quarterback. All quarterbacks, I think, make their receivers, not vice versa. Larry Fitzgerald, best years with his best quarterbacks. Can't you look at LSU is probably the best college football team I've ever seen in terms of they have the best O-line, they have the second best running back in the draft, They have one of the best receivers and the best undraftable receiver. He's still in college. They have the best undraftable corner. I mean, they're going to have like 12 guys drafted. Can't you at least...
Let me interrupt you for just a second, because I want to tout Joe Burrow for a moment here. This might be where you're going with the question. I don't know if it is or not. They've had all that talent for years, so why didn't they win the national championship and put together some of the best years that we've ever seen? That was one of the singular best years that we've ever seen a team have.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the single catalyst was Joe Burrow.
Then why was he so mediocre the year before with all those players?
So late. Remember now, he got there so late. He got there after spring football. He goes through spring football in Columbus, and because remember, Colin, he started at Ohio State first. He goes through spring football in Columbus. Haskins wins the job. Urban Meyer rightly declares Haskins the quarterback at that point. So Burrow is able to go transfer. So he didn't transfer until after spring football. That's 15 full practices. That's a full fall camp. So he missed a full fall camp. Now he gets there. He gets in there a bit late. I think it's understandable that he was average his first season because he didn't have a full off season to play with that team. Then once you have him as the quarterback, remember he took that huge hit in the Fiesta Bowl against UCF on a pick that I think ended up being a pick six. He gets rocked. He comes right back, leads them to victory. There's the turning point for your team as a program. That's the catalyst for then moving into the offseason. He's the bona fide leader. He leads spring football. He leads the throwing sessions in the summer. He leads fall camp. And now all of a sudden you have a team that is behind a true leader at the quarterback position. I think it's a far different set of examples or a set of, outlying deals that you have in his previous season. I really believe that. And I think if you look at it, and I've talked to many coaches down there, this was really his offense. I mean, he was so involved in calling and building these offensive game plans and what they wanted to run and how they wanted to run it. Joe Brady got a lot of credit for it, and I understand Joe Brady got a lot of credit for it, but Joe Burrow was the single catalyst of change from a program that was perpetually underachieving with great recruiting classes under a coach that was just an old defensive line coach, and now all of a sudden he's thought of as this great epiphany of a head coach because he had a quarterback that was unbelievable. Joe Burrow was a surgeon. If Herbert was a blunt instrument, Burrow was a surgeon. This game translates. I've said it on your show, and I'll say it before. I'll say it again. Joe Burrow reminds me of Joe Montana. When Joe Montana played the game, he played with a smoothness in his feet and a surgical approach mentally attacking the defense that at that point was beyond reproach. He had no peer at that point in the way that he played. Burrow is similar to that. He's so smooth. The basketball background, the absolute competitive nature that you see when he gets hit and bounces back, the surgical nature in which he sees the weaknesses in the structure of the defense, and then he goes out and attacks them. I love Joe Burrow, man. Must be nice when you have 9 seconds to throw behind the offensive line of LSU. You're telling me he's Joe Montana. What happened in all those years before? He couldn't beat out Dwayne Haskins. Couldn't beat him out. Couldn't beat out J.T. Barrett. Haskins threw 50 touchdown passes at Ohio State. You're acting like Dwayne Haskins was chopped liver. He put together the single best Big Ten passing season that we've ever seen. Couldn't beat out J.T. Barrett. Drew Brees. Couldn't beat out J.T. Barrett. Well, you'll have to ask Urban about that one. J.T. Barrett right now is, where's he? He's a scout team guy, I think, somewhere, actually. Okay, so put a line in the sand. You would take Tua over Joe Burrow. I think if Tua didn't have a hip in, why are you hemming and hawing? If you're gonna listen, all I'm saying, walk the walk. I said Burrow is Tony Romo. You've got him because he shares the same shoe size as Montana as the second greatest quarterback of all time. I think that's a little over the top. I believe, won't guarantee, I believe Joe Burrow will have a much better NFL career than Tony Romo, who didn't win a playoff game. With Cincinnati's ownership and front office in that division. Well, I didn't say where he was going to play, but I did just share with you how he changed the culture of a perpetually underachieving program with top 10 classes, and he took them to the single greatest season that we may have ever seen a college football team have. Certainly the best single season I've ever seen a quarterback. Let's make a bet because maybe he's the catalyst for change.
this is the easiest bet. I feel guilty because you have a wonderful family. So what bet are we going to? I'll make you a deal. He does not make the playoffs in his first 5 years. So this will be a long payoff bet. Let's do a short payoff bet. He will be the fourth best quarterback in his division his first year in the NFL. Let's bet something delicious. What do you want to go on? Dinner. You name the spot. Man. I mean, this is the easiest bet I've ever made. I thought Goulet was a sucker.
This is a lot of constraints here. Fourth best in his own division?
Yeah. Passer rating, fourth best passer rating own division.
I mean, that has so many other factors rather than his actual game. I would rather do.
I thought he was Joe Montana.
Playoffs in his first 3 years. First 3 years, and I'll put $1,000 to any charity.
Joe Montana won the Super Bowl first year.
Well, then take Tua. Take Tua, Colin. If you're going to talk like this, then take Tua. Go out there. Come on. You got the mic. Toughen up.
No, I'm kidding. All right. I'm done with you, Klatt. Go to at NFL on Fox and foxsports.com. The great Joel Klatt. Good talking to you.
My man, have a great day. Hey, by the way, thank you to all the first responders, the nurses, the doctors. You're out there on the front lines. We love you. Thank you. We're thinking about you.
Awesome. Ditto. Here's Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Heard on the news. This is the Herdline News.
No, Colin, that was like poetry.
He's literally, his feet are like Joe Montana. You know what? My feet are like Bob Costas. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. His feet are like...
I hate comps, so I don't want to compare Joe Burrow to anyone, although I have heard Montana from several people. I just think that Joe Burrow is great, and I like listening to Joel Klatt agree with me. Also, I think you're running out of places to go in the country because now you need a pass to go to Iowa. So you need a pass to go to Cleveland.
They do.
Iowa. Oklahoma City.
Yeah. By the way, I will say this about Iowa. They not only put guys in the NFL, they're almost always good. Like Iowa puts guys in the NFL. They do not. Alabama puts 1 million guys in the NFL, half can't play. Iowa guys go to the NFL, they can almost all play.
Very consistent, very solid. So LeBron James is in his 17th NBA season and is still obviously playing at a high level. And he was asked if there was any NBA franchises he would never join during a live stream on Instagram. And he responded with a strong commitment to the Lakers.
I'm still playing, man. I gotta keep all my options open, man. But right now, I tell you one thing: I don't want to go nowhere besides be here, baby. Be a Laker for the rest of my life.
That's nice.
LeBron has been very active on social media, as has most of the NBA players, because obviously we are shut down when it comes to sports, so they're staying busy on TikTok and whatnot. But it was a really nice commitment to the Lakers, although I don't think there was a question in anyone's mind at this point that he was going to finish his career anywhere except for Los Angeles, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, it just fits his... Right now, his brand's big, LA's big. This is where he should end it.
I mean, maybe there was some thought that he would go back to Cleveland, so he would retire a Cav or something.
Nonsense.
But I never thought that. I think he's going to retire a Laker. If they don't finish the season, it's we've had so many conversations this year about him being the MVP. It's kind of it's another sad thought if they don't end up finishing the season that LeBron wouldn't get the MVP with the level that he's been playing at this season, averaging 25.7 points per game, almost 8 rebounds per game, 10.6 assists per game, leading the NBA in assists, and shooting 49.8% field goal percentage. He's just had an incredible season, so hopefully they end up being able to finish it. So the Texans traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals last week. When the move was made, Deshaun Watson tweeted, "This is crazy," and that he didn't know how to thank someone that did so much for his career. And he seemed to make another statement on Twitter yesterday, but he was quoting lyrics from Drake's song Emotionless. It's going to sound weird reading it, but he posted, "I don't know how I'm going to make it out of here clean because I can't even keep track of who plays for the other team. Iconic duos rip and split at the seams." Now, obviously, we are a little shots fired. We're reading a little into everything right now on social media because we all have a little extra time on our hands. But I can't imagine that Deshaun Watson is very happy right now. Obviously, losing DeAndre Hopkins was a huge deal, but I really don't understand the approach that the Texans are taking to their organization in general. I'm a firm believer that great leaders delegate. So having control and having all the power sounds great in theory, like being able to make all of the decisions, but it also means all the responsibility and all of the fallout goes on you as well. So if you're going to be everything to an organization as Bill O'Brien is, then all of those decisions need to come from a level-headed place. And he has been accused of getting a little emotional when it comes to players and making decisions from that space, as opposed to when you have a GM, you have someone you can bounce things off of to make a wider decision for your organization. Like losing DeAndre Hopkins when Deshaun Watson is already running around for his life seems like a really bad decision.
Yes.
Especially for what they got for him.
Well, they don't have a GM. And so when you don't have a GM, you get worked by other GMs.
Right. Exactly. You're at a disadvantage. So Tom Brady was introduced as a member of the Buccaneers today, and he gave a little insight into why he chose Tampa Bay.
There are a lot of things that really were, intriguing to me about the organization and, the players and the coaches and, the willingness of everyone to try to, accomplish what the goal of playing football is, which is to win. I'm going to try to do everything I can in my position and what I'm responsible for to make that happen. And, I've got to trust that everyone else is doing the exact same thing. So in that part, it's no different from, what I've experienced, for 20 years in my own role.
Yep.
I'm very, very interested to see what the Buccaneers look like this year. We obviously know they have a lot of
It'll be fun.
offensive talent.
We know it'll be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But fun to me is like what this move is really all about. Because we're seeing what the fallout is in New England, and it clearly has a lot to do with the rift with Belichick, even though, no one's really confirmed that directly. It's all a little passive-aggressive when it comes to that. But I think we can all assume that that's what happened. So he's going to the Buccaneers to, quote-unquote, win, but it's not necessarily an easy situation. Carolina, we imagine, is going to be a little bit better. He's going against Drew Brees and the Saints, who have not taken a step back. This is not an easy road for Tom Brady, but it does feel like this is a move that he's making so that he can have a little bit of relief. He's going to have some strong offensive pieces. He's going to be looked at as a leader. Everyone there is excited to have him. The fans are going to be re-energized in that market. But it's also just going to let him play loose for the first time in what feels like a long time.
Yes.
And that feels like that was the biggest part of this move, is that he's going to go somewhere where he's going to be able to just be himself and be happy and not have the pressure that he had in New England, along with whatever rift is going on with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, he's going to a place that he doesn't have to be compared to himself, right? Like, he had to top himself in New England. Now he goes 10-6. He is a savior. That's a great feeling.
Well, that's why I think he wins the divorce, at least temporarily, because I have no expectations of Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl. But if he is good to great within the next 2 years before he retires,
it's a great way to go.
But it's also gonna look like Belichick maybe made this decision too soon, because if Belichick over the next 5 years doesn't get back to the top, it's gonna feel like maybe you were still a little premature on bailing on Tom Brady.
Good stuff, Joy, with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
Some teams will obviously get better with the NFL draft slightly. I'm a big believer that free agency is where the really smart teams get better. So best for last. This will be fun. I'm going to give you my first herd hierarchy post-free agent class. Top 10. I'm going to roll the dice on some of these. What I believe are the top 10 teams in the NFL after free agency. Now, again, somebody's going to plug some holes. Jets are going to get a couple of offensive linemen in the draft, but I don't think they're a top 10 team regardless. Free agency. Hard hierarchy. Next.